The bell above the bakery door rang out at exactly noon, and every head in the shop turned toward the woman standing in the doorway, with a trembling voice and empty pockets, asking a question no mother should ever have to ask out loud. "Do you have an expired cake for my daughter?" The words hit the warm, sugar-scented air like a slap, and for one long, aching moment, nobody in the bakery moved. Her name was Halima, and she had walked nearly 2 miles under the afternoon sun with her 6-year-old daughter. Amara's hand clutched in hers, because today was Amara's birthday, and Halima had exactly $3.40 left in the world. She had told herself she wouldn't cry in front of the girl behind the counter, wouldn't cry in front of the strangers waiting for their lattes and croissants, wouldn't cry in front of her daughter who still believed, despite everything, that birthdays were magic. But standing there, asking for the bakery's stale, discounted, thrown-away cake, because it was the only cake she could possibly afford, something inside her chest cracked wide open. The young cashier, flustered and unsure, opened her mouth to explain that they didn't really do that health codes and store policy made it complicated, when a voice from the corner table said, quietly but firmly, "Wait." Every eye shifted toward the man sitting alone by the window, a untouched espresso cooling in front of him, a laptop closed beside a folder thick with contracts. His name was Julian Whitmore, and though almost no one in that small-town bakery recognized his face, his name alone controlled hotels, shipping ports, and half a dozen companies whose products sat in nearly every household in the country. He had ducked into this bakery for 15 quiet minutes between meetings, craving nothing more than silence and black coffee. Instead, he had just heard a mother offer to buy her child's love with garbage cake, and something in him refused to let the moment pass unnoticed. Before we go further into Halima and Amara's story, if you believe in kindness and second chances, and in the idea that a stranger's small act can change an entire life, take a moment right now to like this video, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Whispering Tales Stories so you never miss a story like this one. Now back to Halima. 3 months earlier, Halima had been a different woman entirely. A woman with a steady job at a textile factory, a modest apartment, and a husband named Tobias who adored his daughter more than his own life. Then came the accident on a rain-slicked highway, the phone call at 2 a.m., the funeral where Amara, only 5 at the time, kept asking when Daddy was coming home. Grief had a way of unraveling everything it touched. Halima lost her job when her mind wouldn't stop breaking during work hours. She lost the apartment 2 months later. She and Amara had been staying in a shelter across town, sleeping in a room with 6 other families, Halima spending her days searching for work and her nights whispering apologies to a daughter who never once complained. But today Amara turned 6, and she had asked for exactly one thing, not toys, not a party, just a cake with her name written on it and pink icing, like the ones in the window. Halima had walked past this very bakery every single day for 2 weeks, watching Amara press her small hands against the glass, watching her eyes widen at every cake, decorated with flowers and stars and swirls of frosting. Today, Halima had promised herself she would find a way. She sold the only piece of jewelry she had left, her wedding ring, for $11 at a pawn shop that morning, and after walking the 2 miles here under a punishing sun, she had exactly $3.40 remaining, because the rest had gone to a bag of rice and a carton of milk for the week. $3.40 could not buy a birthday cake, and so, with her pride crumbling in her throat, she had asked for whatever the bakery couldn't sell. Julian rose from his table and walked toward the counter, and Halima instinctively pulled Amara closer, bracing for judgment, for pity, for the kind of look she had grown sadly used to receiving from strangers. Instead, Julian looked down at Amara, who was staring at a 3-tiered cake decorated with sugar butterflies, and he asked her gently which cake was her favorite. Amara, shy but unable to resist the question, pointed to the butterfly cake without hesitation. Julian turned to the cashier and said simply, "Box it up, and write happy birthday, Amara, on the top in pink icing, exactly the way she wants it." Halima began to protest, her voice cracking, insisting she couldn't accept this, that she hadn't meant to ask for charity, only for whatever was going to be thrown away anyway. Julian looked at her with a steadiness that carried no pity in it at all, only quiet respect, and said that no mother should ever have to ask that question, and that today she wouldn't have to. But Julian didn't stop there. While the cake was being boxed, he asked Halima carefully, without prying, what had brought her to this moment. And Halima, worn thin by months of holding herself together, found herself telling this stranger everything: the accident, the shelter, the job searches that led nowhere because she had no address to list, no phone that always had minutes left on it. Julian listened without interrupting, without offering hollow comfort, simply listening the way so few people had bothered to in the last 3 months. When she finished, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, sliding it across the counter along with the boxed cake. He told her that his company was opening a new logistics office 2 streets over, that they needed reliable people, and that if she was willing, she should come by Monday morning and ask for him directly. He also mentioned, almost as an afterthought, that the company kept a small emergency housing fund for employees in crisis, and that no one needed to know the details of why she needed it. Halima stood frozen, the cake box warm against her palms, Amara already peeking excitedly through the small window on the lid at the butterflies dusted in sugar. She tried to find words to thank him, but nothing felt big enough for what he had just handed her. Not just a cake, not just a job, but a door that had been slammed shut for 3 long months, suddenly impossibly cracked open again. Julian simply nodded, told her to take care of her daughter, and turned to leave, as though he hadn't just rewritten the course of 2 lives in the span of 10 minutes. Monday morning, Halima walked into that logistics office in the only clean blouse she owned, and by the end of the week she had a position in the receiving department, a small advance on her first paycheck, and a temporary room secured through the company's housing fund, a real room with a real bed for Amara. It would take months to fully rebuild what grief had taken from her, but for the first time since the funeral, Halima fell asleep without crying, because for the first time, she had something steadier than fear holding her up: hope, and proof that it was real. Months later, on a warm afternoon, Halima returned to that same bakery, this time with money of her own, and ordered a cake exactly like the one Amara had received that day. The butterfly cake, because now it was Halima's turn to give her daughter a birthday that felt like magic, without needing anyone's charity to make it happen. Amara, older now and taller, still remembered the stranger who had smiled at her by the bakery window, and she asked her mother if they would ever see him again. Halima told her that some people walk into your life for only 10 minutes, but leave footprints that last forever, and that was more than enough. If this story touched your heart even a little, if it reminded you that kindness can still change everything, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who might need it today, because stories like Halima and Amara's deserve to reach as many hearts as possible. And before we go, if this story moved you, comment the word butterfly below, just so we know this story reached your heart the way it was meant to. Halima never forgot the man who bought her daughter a cake, and Julian, in his quiet way, never forgot the mother who taught him that sometimes the most powerful thing a person can do isn't written in a contract or a boardroom, but in a single, simple act of listening. And somewhere in that small-town bakery, the memory of that afternoon still lingers in the scent of sugar and warm bread, a reminder that kindness, once given, never truly fades away.